So this was a video I wanted to put out for a while now. Unfortunately, no matter how hard I tried, for the life of me I could not convince the jail guards that needing to put out videos about Radiohead on YouTube was a good excuse to let me have unsupervised internet access and a computer. And by the time my 7-month sentence was over, I didn't want to just come back with some fuddy-duddy little discussion video about Radiohead news. I needed to come back with something that had effort put into it, which is why I whipped up that 2-parter about Radiohead music videos. But now that those are out of the way, I think I can safely dive into this shit. Recently, some tremendous news broke out about the band having plans for 2023. Like clockwork, everyone was quick to jump the gun and assume that this was LP10 confirmed, at least until it was clarified to being discussion for an anniversary release. And hey, I ain't complaining about that. I've been more than satisfied with the Smile and the guy's solo projects. And so far, OK Not OK and the Kid Amnesia game have been fantastic. And with it being 2023, that means it's been a couple of decades since one of my personal favorite albums from the band had been released. That's right, baby. I'm talking about Hail to the Thief. What the fuck? Get the hell out of here, Pablo, honey. Nobody likes you. That's right, baby. Hail to the fucking Thief. Now, I love this album, but you'd be lying to yourself if you denied it being their most rushed album. They really wanted to get out of that EMI deal. It's obvious that it didn't get the same amount of attention to detail as, say, an album like In Rainbows or OK Computer has. And as a result of that, it turned out a little rough around the edges, especially in regards to its track listing. Not to say that the track listing is bad, I personally have grown quite accustomed to it at least. But if you were to ask anyone who isn't a fan of this album what they thought its main problem was, more often than not they're gonna complain about it being too long or having too much filler. Which begs me the question, if Radiohead were to do an anniversary release of Hail to the Thief, do you think they'd put in an effort to redo the track listing? I think they would. It's not like it would be the first time someone in the band has done it. I mean, to this day they still remark about the length of the album. I'd be surprised if they didn't change things around a bit. Which now begs the other question. How would a hypothetically shuffled around Hail to the Thief turn out? Well, for starters, we can take a look into that alternate track listing from Tom that I briefly mentioned just a bit ago. It's about as official as you can get, so it'd be a good idea of what to expect if it happens. On October 20th, 2008, Tom took to Waste Central one day, which, if you don't know what that is some sort of official Radiohead social media site. An oxymoron to say the least. The post he made reads as follows. Below comments a long time ago, a lot of water under the bridge. Out of the gutters I found this. There, the gloaming. Sail to the moon. Sit down, stand up. Go to sleep. Where I end and begin. Scatterbrain. 2 + 2 = 5. Myxomatosis. A wolf at the door. If I had to speculate a bit on this, I feel like it came from another random comment that Tom stumbled upon and liked enough to consider sharing. At least that's what the vague musings at the start of the post give me the idea of. So for the sake of that, I'm going to safely refer to this track listing as the Waste variant from here on, since I don't believe that Tom sat down and made it himself. Regardless though, it's a Radiohead approved alternate track listing to Hail to the Thief, so let's take a closer look into it. This version cuts down the track total from 14 to just 10, omitting Backdrifts, I Will, Punch Up, and Young Blood, clocking in at around 39 minutes in total. To be honest, I think we're already off to an odd start. While I'm on board for the removal of the latter 2 songs, the former 2 I feel are pretty essential to the album, especially I Will, which is fittingly the angriest song from the band's angriest album. If you really couldn't make room for Backdrifts, then I get it, but I Will is short and sweet enough to easily fit as an interlude in whatever place you put it. Not to mention it would help it squeeze past that 40-minute mark. I feel like an exception could have been made for that song specifically. And then getting onto the actual track listing itself, and I still just can't help but feel put off by this. 2 + 2 = 5 is an absolutely fantastic way to kickstart Hail to the Thief with how it completely engulfs you into the bitter anger that permeates throughout the record. In contrast, There is much more of a slow burner of a song that doesn't really tackle the album's central themes as much as does more personal struggles. I think its placement was already perfect on the original track listing with how it serves as both a rest from the political anxiety and as a way to drum up anticipation for the second half of the album. I just feel like it works better in the middle than it does to introduce the album as a whole. But I guess I'm coming in a bit rough here. At the end of the day, this version is trying to reinvent Hail to the Thief. When you've heard the album in its original sequencing dozens upon hundreds of times, it's easy to grow a bit attached to it and be put off by some drastic changes, you know? I should be more willing to separate myself from my preconceived bias on how the album should flow and be more accepting of a version that takes the risk in standing out as something different. So I've given it a couple of listens now with a more open mindset and, well, it's okay. There isn't as bad of an opener as I made it out to be, though I still feel like 2 + 2 = 5 would have done a better job. I quite like the idea of moving the Gloaming up to the second track as it helps the song feel more important in the grand scheme of things. Whereas on the original track listing, I was more willing to skip it to get onto there. It helps me gain a newfound appreciation for a song I used to think would have fit better on something like The Eraser. And it flows quite nicely into Sail to the Moon too. But I can't say I like the way that Sit Down Stand Up follows Sail to the Moon. Something about that just feels off to me, but I can't put my finger on exactly why. I guess this would be a good time to bring up that Hail to the Thief is a very transition-heavy album. They put in the effort to make sure the songs flowed seamlessly into each other, so when you go to switch them around, you're going to get some pretty jarring changes as a result. It would take a bit of studio tinkering to rework the songs to fit better in their newfound context, which is why I did my best to do just that. I put a slight crossfade between Sit Down Stand Up and Sail to the Moon to help the songs flow into each other a bit better. For context, here's how it sounded initially. And here's how it sounds with the crossfade. It's subtle, but I feel it helps make the transition feel much smoother as a result. I did this throughout the rest of the track listing as well, adjusting the gaps of silence to help it all feel a bit more cohesive, as well as making one pretty big adjustment that I'll discuss when we get to it. Sit Down Stand Up transitions finally into Go to Sleep, and then following Go to Sleep is Where I End and You Begin, the only two songs that flow like the original track listing. Next we have Scatterbrain and... Alright, I give up. I'm biased. Scatterbrain works best as the second to last song. Sue me. I guess I picked the perfect time to throw in the towel here since we're moving on to perhaps the most baffling decision in the track listing. 2 + 2 = 5 being smack dab in the middle of the second half of the album. Some people will try to say that it works, but I just can't hear it. I tried cutting out the guitar feedback in the intro to see if it would help it flow a bit better, which is that big adjustment I was talking about earlier. But it still just comes off as awkward to me. Mixomatosis, however, carries on the energy of 2 + 2 = 5 and flows nicely into A Wolf at the Door, which I'm glad has kept its placement as the closer. At this point, I would have put it past this track listing to have found a way to put it elsewhere. Alright, I've been pretty harsh on this, but I can't outright tell you that I think it's bad. It's just really different, and not in a way that I think serves as an improvement over the original. It seems to veer the problems into a different direction, making everything almost feel a bit too concise and a bit understated, which isn't really an impression you want to get with an album called Hail to the Thief. Man, if analyzing this has made me realize anything, it's that I think the band really exaggerates just how cluttered this album really is. I mean, it's only 14 songs long. That's just 2 more than like 3 of their other albums. Hell, it's only 3 minutes longer than OK Computer. Is it as cohesive as OK Computer? No. But it's also really not that fucking long. I honestly don't think the original track order is as bad as it's made out to be either. I feel like at the bare minimum, if you just casted away Youngblood and Punch Up as B-sides, cut down backdrifts to be a minute or 2 shorter, and adjusted the track transitions to these changes, we wouldn't even be having this discussion at all. But that doesn't stop a shitload of people from wanting to take a crack at restructuring it. And hey, I ain't particularly mad about it. I just wish it didn't have to go hand in hand with implying that the original is some bloated mess when it's really not that bad. But hey, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. So I figured I'd go ahead and take a stab at this reimagining of Hail to the Thief myself. Now I'm not going to present this to you as the new definitive way to listen to Hail to the Thief. That's way better than the original and the w.a.s.t.e variant. I don't want to come off as some prick who thinks he can do Radiohead better than fucking Radiohead. In fact, to prevent anyone from getting that idea, I'm just going to outright admit that I think this is the shittiest, most unsatisfying way to listen to the album. And if you enjoyed it in any way, shape, or form, you're the biggest fool in the entire known galaxy. So don't think I'm trying to one-up anyone here just because I had some criticisms about the w.a.s.t.e variant. I'm just doing this for fun. Anyways, so my take goes as follows. Track 1, I Will. Track 2, 2 plus 2 equals 5. I know somebody is already thinking, hey Puka, how come 2 plus 2 equals 5 isn't the first song on the album after you had a meltdown over there on the w.a.s.t.e variant? And all I can say is listen here, you preconceived antagonistic commenter that I'd conjured up through my irrational thoughts and anxieties. I have a good explanation for it. Some more keen Hail to the Thief fans may already be aware that there are 2 separate versions of I Will. The one on the album, and the LA version included on the Com Lag EP. The former is a bleak acoustic version of the song, while the latter includes the full band and sounds very sorrowful. Something I always thought would be cool was if the 2 variants both kicked off and closed the album as a way to bookend it. Kinda similar to My Hey Hey and Hey Hey My on Rust Never Sleeps by Neil Young. It also ties into that storybook theme that's been attached to Hail to the Thief. However, this then presents the issue that the guitar ring out at the end of I Will flows into Punch Up at the Wedding on the original album, making the abrupt cut of it into 2 plus 2 equals 5 sound really jarring. Thankfully, there is a solution to this, and it's all thanks to piracy. The leaked, unmastered version of Hail to the Thief left the entire ring out intact to I Will, giving me the ability to splice the rest of it into where it cuts out on the album version. Then with this, I panned the ring out from the left channel to the right, where the feedback in 2 plus 2 equals 5 is located, to give it a more cohesive transition. I recommend wearing headphones to hear this clearly. To me, this sort of simulates the rest of the band plugging in their instruments to kickstart the album proper with 2 plus 2 equals 5, making the songs a 2-part opener inspired by This Lullaby and Medication from Lullabies to Paralyzed by Queens of the Stone Age. I know I complained about There being a slow burner of an opener on the w.a.s.t.e variant, and having to sit through I Will to get to 2 plus 2 equals 5 is inarguably a lot slower of an opener than that is, but I don't know, man. I think it works. Something about having to wait an extra 2 minutes for 2 plus 2 equals 5 to explode just makes that part of the song sound way more intense and satisfying. You could think of it as a glorified interlude if you wish to do so. The next 2 songs take a few beats from the w.a.s.t.e variant, having both the Gloaming and Sail to the Moon follow 2 plus 2 equals 5. I just really liked how they flowed together on that version, and like I said earlier, having the Gloaming earlier on in the track listing helps to make the song feel more significant. Sail to the Moon to Go to Sleep pretty much mimics the original track listing. The fade out of Go to Sleep would mark the end of the first half of the album, making way for There to stick out as the central point. Where I end and You Begin and Sit Down Stand Up, then follow up from There to start the second half. Initially I had these before There, but found that it put the song too low in the track listing and adjusted accordingly. Not sure if that was the right move, since the song admittedly feels a little odd to kick off a second half, but it feels right to see There smack dab in the middle. I also really wanted to ensure that Sit Down Stand Up came after Where I End and You Begin, since I think those 2 songs flow together really well. The upbeat ending of the Raindrop section gives way into Mixomatosis, where from that song onward I once again keep things the same from the original track listing, save for the LA version of I Will at the end here to bookend it all. So in a nutshell, it's just a slightly refined take on the original track listing, with a few beats taken from the w.a.s.t.e variant and a few changes of my own, along with the I Will gimmick to give it some personality. In total, it clocks in with 13 songs at around 49 minutes, 7.5 minutes shorter than the original. If you want to listen to these alternate versions yourselves, I'll have links to the edited versions I made in the description. To differentiate them, I thought it would be cool to give them surnames like the rest of the tracks on Hail to the Thief, so I aptly subtitled the w.a.s.t.e variant as The Gloaming as a reference to one of the album's potential titles, and my version as I Will for reasons that are obvious. But at the end of the day, if I want to listen to Hail to the Thief, I'm just gonna listen to the original. Although I can't lie that it is pretty entertaining to come up with these alternate reality versions of the album and see other people's various takes of it online. Which is why I'd like to play a little game with you guys. What would be your take on the track listing? Would you try to keep it as close to the original as possible like I did? Or would you do something completely different and allow the w.a.s.t.e variant? Would you incorporate the B-sides from the Lag EP? Or would you stand up against the slander I put towards Youngblood and Punch Up and transform the entire album into an EP containing only those two songs? Leave a comment with your take on the track listing down below, and make sure to leave a like on the comment with your favorite take. Honest to God, I'm not doing this as some cheap ploy to push the video in the YouTube algorithm. I'm genuinely invested in seeing what alternate versions of the album you guys can come up with. Hopefully if enough people participate, we can gauge what the definitive alternate track listing for Hail to the Thief would be via the comment with the most likes. So to cap this off, should the anniversary release become a thing with a redone track listing, you can expect me to do a follow-up video on it when it's announced. But honestly, at this point I'm starting to hope that it never happens. Because I just listened to this album like 100 times throughout the past month, and I'm so tired of hearing these fucking songs.